Hey guys, we got a lot to talk about with this episode. So right out of the gate, let's talk about the fight between Garrett and Shiki because when I first read this in the manga, I'd always thought I was Mashima like falling back into his tropes, and it's not hard to easily perceive that here. But the big difference is that when you really look at this, when you look at the fight between Garrett and Shiki, Mashima is kind of creating villains so detestable that while there is room to critique the logistics of the fights they're in, we also just want to see them get their lights punched out. But even more so, I think Mashima personally made thugs like Garrett out as kind of scrubs to a certain degree, which because in order to kind of show that when you take away their advantages, the power the power they have over others, that's really all they are. But even more than that, I think the other reason as to why Mashima made people like Garrett into scrubs kind of thing is that when we do get to the final fight, it's a bit more of a shock to the system that oh yeah, they're even if the lackeys aren't all that strong, the boss definitely is, and by a lot. And this is actually a harsh lesson I learned the hard way in Belial Gore and with Draken Joe. Which, taking this mindset into consideration, seeing Shiki just wailing on Garrett left and right was so satisfying, even if it was short-lived when we get to the point of Garrett transporting both Shiki and Rebecca to a completely different area of the mine. And after Shiki and Homer are sent away, though, we get introduced to another jailer, Axe Punisher Baku, which, I'll be honest, his color scheme was kind of the complete reverse of what I was expecting. I mean, I know it's kind of hard to visualize something in manga format, but when I was looking at Baku's like appearance in the manga, I expected his color scheme to be more black hair and gray skin over orange hair and gray skin. So something that more closely resembled a gorilla. So seeing the orange hair kind of threw me off a bit. Although it is kind of funny in the sense where if you look at it that he's basically an oversized orangutan. I guess I don't know. Um, of course, we also get a little bit of an interesting tidbit after Shiki frees Homura, which is that apparently ones with ether gear can't use their powers when tied up. And yeah, that's one of those things that makes a whole lot more sense considering what I recently learned about ether gear and where the manga is right now. With that said, with some help from Nino, Rebecca basically makes it to the underground where she meets Paul, a very eccentric disciple of Valkyrie, who within a single B cube holds the truth behind everything, including why Valkyrie left and why she's never coming back. Which, yeah, folks, buckle up, because everything from this point on is where it all gets really emotionally juicy. In fact, Garrett. There are so many little moments and like conversations within this chapter, within this episode, honestly, that kind of gives away the ghost as to why she's not coming back. But it's one of those things where you gotta kind of pace. This is we're getting into certain parts of the story now, where where you really need to pay attention to the small details, the small conversations, the small moments, because believe it or not, those small moments are the ones that have the biggest wealth of information that eventually leads to bigger reveals. Honestly, like it's kind of getting to that point in the story where those little details are just as important as the bigger ones. Um, like and but as far as the reason the reason Valkyrie left, that in itself is its own emotionally beautiful paradox, because the funny thing is, it's one of those things where the pretty much very reason that Valkyrie left is pretty much here on this planet. Like it's one of those things where where everything is beautifully coming together, in the sense where even though Homer is here looking for Valkyrie, the reason Valkyrie left and the reason Valkyrie is here on this planet is pretty much for Homura as well, and to find a certain person for Homura. So yeah, it's kind of interesting how all these kind of come together beautifully. Um, Now, and yeah, after defeating the Black Rock monster, Paul basically swiftly removes Shiki and Homura's colors after learning they'd spend their entire lives as slaves working the mine. Which, I admit, these two moments happening so pretty much happening like back to back of each other in such a sequential order. Uh, it was one. It was kind. It's one of. It's one. It's the one moment in the series. It's the one moment in the series that's still a little jarring to this day, and you can kind of tell that the whole Blackrock fight. It's just really Mashima's way of trying to move the story forward, and it's for the sake of Homer to meet Paul. That's really kind of all that fight really is meant. Other like you could pretty much cut it out and not miss anything, but yeah, you can tell that Majin was trying to find a way to move the story along and get them to meet Paul. That's really all it was meant for. And yeah, Kurenai is about to burn the labor stick down, so that puts our heroes in a bit of a time crunch stopper. And I do like how the Eden Zero being their new primary source of revenue, as Kurenai so eloquently puts it, is it's one of those that feels like both an interesting way but also a contrived way to get the Eden Zero crew to go into direct conflict with Kurenai, because honestly when you really get down to it, like the Eden Zero crew were really just there to find Valkyrie, and anything to do with Kurenai was really just a nuisance. But now Kurenai has kind of forced their hands with this situ, has done it where she's forcing their hands in order to come into direct conflict with her, and and they kind of have to if they want to if they want to even save the Eden Zero itself, really. Of course, kind of going back a bit, when we get the moment of we get a moment between Nino and Rebecca in this episode where we kind of learn that Kurenai has been tracking the crew's movements since they got there, and not only that, but her surveillance is so good that even a simple whisper of a word can be picked up by her. So it's like one of those ones where the moment any of them had mentioned Eden Zero, they were already compromised. And revisiting this material, I often wonder if Mashin was going the route the route he did with Sunjul in this very specific regard is his own commentary on surveillance, because just the prospect of Kurenai watching everything is actually kind of more of a frightening concept than I had initially thought. And most of it coming from just how when you look at everyday life now, we basically got a camera and a security system and anything else and any kind of surveillance technology on the sun for everything. Like, surveillance is basically everywhere, even when we don't think it is. And yeah, it's kind of frightening. I'm not gonna lie to you guys. So yeah, I wonder. The commentary is kind of more blatant than I thought it was when you look at it. But yeah, guys, that's pretty much all I got for this review. If you enjoyed the video, like, comment, subscribe, follow me on Twitter, Analyst, Crunchyroll. Be sure to hit the notification bell, subscribe button, and just share the video around, guys. Death Knight of Anime, signing off. Later, everyone.